My Minecraft base is a mess. Let me explain. So I've been playing on the Channel 64 SMP Season 4 world for almost 8 months now, and yeah, there are some builds that I am generally really happy with, but everything else in between them, let's just say it's disconnected, it's messy, and it's incomplete. And with all my neighbors building these incredible bases around me, my place just feels unfinished. So today, that all changes, and I'm going to be transforming this broken base into a real town with proper paths, real structure, and landscaping that finally ties everything together. Starting any new transformation project in Minecraft is always hard, so what we're going to do first is we're actually going to clear ourselves some space and give ourselves a little bit of a blank canvas to actually work with, so that we can start to figure out kind of like how we want to lay out and start building in a whole town to sort of gradually build out over time. So by chopping back this little landscape area sort of directly across is going to give ourselves a little bit more breathing space. Okay, so I officially made my base even uglier, so that's a great win already, but I think now at least we have some clear space. So what we're going to do now is we're going to collect up a load of stone from our collection here in our storage, and then we're going to start building out a bit of a platform actually, and I'm going to try and shape it around the whole lake shore, because I think it could look quite nice to actually have a town actually on a raised level above the lake area. So we need to actually start building this in. I'm trying to make it feel a bit more organic and try and have some gradual sloping as well, because I think that will look pretty good if we start to build sort of different stuff along those different levels. And at least then it's not so flat, because that's the sort of thing you want to try and avoid in general in Minecraft, is avoid things being flat. So having some different levels like that is going to really add some more depth. But then what we're going to need to do is I want to actually do something that I almost didn't want to do in the first place, and that is to actually join our lake up with the main river. So then, yes, you're probably right in thinking that it's not really a lake. I don't really know what you'd call it at this point, but I actually think it could look so much better if we have like a waterway kind of splitting up the two areas of our base, or the starter area, and then our whole new sort of town area that we're going to gradually build out. Because then we can actually have some like nice like little landscapes, like river banks or stream banks, whatever you want to call them, and then actually start to build in some like bridges and things sort of going across and connecting things up. So I think that could be a really interesting challenge. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's start and actually clear this out and actually join up with the main river. Definitely not complete by any means, but we now at least have the sort of the foundations really of a waterway that's connecting us up to the main river, so that's pretty nice, and I think that's definitely giving me a bit of inspiration. But I think with this sort of now in place, I think this kind of gives ourselves some room to kind of focus a little bit on maybe adding in the first couple of buildings onto our lovely ugly stone platform that we currently have. So for that, we're actually going to need to gather up a few resources. Now thankfully, I actually have pretty much almost everything, I think, actually in my little storage area within our little starter house. Amazingly, my storage isn't actually complete chaos at this point, as it usually is. I mean, we still definitely need to build up a proper storage hall at some point, because we are definitely outgrowing this tiny cramped little room really in our attic. So yeah, but anyway, with the stuff that we now have crafted up and ready to go, we can actually start building in the first house. Okay, so the first little house is actually looking pretty good, but why build one when you can build two? So I'm actually going to build up a second building, slightly bigger than the first, and this one's going to be a little bit more grand and slightly bigger in terms of the interior and the space within it. So I'm actually really happy to build this one, because this is something that I was quite happy with the design of. I've really kind of challenged myself a little bit more, especially with the roof, because that's usually my challenge really when it comes to designing houses and buildings and things in general, I always get a little bit stuck on the roof. So I've tried to kind of really sort of mix this up a little bit, add a little like side window on sort of like both ends. So having like the sort of normal typical front to rear, but also have a little one on the side as well. So we can kind of look out over the lake area. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. This is looking pretty good. And I'm very happy with the little chimneys and stuff that I've added on top. That's something that I think really adds a little bit of character. It's like a nice little bit of wonk, really. Like, if you know what I mean, it kind of looks a little bit wonky, and just by doing that, it actually feels a little bit more real. And I don't know, it just feels nice. So I like this. It's bare inside, so don't judge me too much. I hate interiors. But we will do that at some point. Maybe not this episode, but I'm definitely going to do the interiors at some point. Don't know if we're going to promise that, but we'll see how we get along. But anyway, with these two buildings now in place, this is actually making me feel a lot more positive around the whole transformation project. It's definitely given me a boost because I very much need to kind of see real progress before I can actually start to get some real confidence in what I'm actually doing. So yeah, I'm really happy that we got the first two in. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to gather up some azalea leaves. So you might be wondering why we're going to need azalea leaves at this point in time. Well, now that we actually have those first couple of builds in place and that we have our ugly stone platform, I think it's actually time to start making it a little less ugly. So I think what we can do now is we can actually start to build up a little bit of like an embankment, sort of like the lower area beneath the sort of the raised platform. And of course, we're going to need to actually transform it from pure stone into a bit more of like a mix of different blocks. So I do need to collect up a little bit of andesite and of course some stone bricks, which I'm going to actually smelt up into cracked stone brick variant because I think that's actually going to look a little bit nicer. We'll also mix in things like cobblestone and a mossy cobblestone. So I think that's going to look pretty good. And then, yeah, we can go ahead really and start replacing the stone and actually start making it look a little bit nicer. But we'll begin first by actually adding in the little outer embankment area because I think that's actually going to really help break things up a little bit. Okay, so we now have a bit more of a textured wall, and I think this is actually looking a lot better now. It's definitely looking a lot less bare and blank, so yeah, really glad that that's out of the way. And I think this outer bank area that we've been adding in is also going a long way, because what it does is it offers a really nice transition from the man-made structure of the raised platform and the walls into the more organic, natural elements of our whole waterway and the lakes. So yeah, I think this is looking really good. It kind of really blends things together quite nicely. So I'm very happy with that. But then around the rear, we have this sort of empty area, and I think a jetty area would be perfect because obviously we're in a waterway. So, you know, the town's going to be very much based off of fishermen and other sorts sort of coming in and out. So I'm going to be building in a lot of boats and other little things like that. So I think having a jetty is an absolute must, and I think it's going to be a lovely little feature at the rear here, and it kind of really polishes things off quite nicely. Something like this I think is going to look pretty good. But before we move on any further with this whole project, I do just want to add in quickly a little elevated ledge on the outer wall, because eventually we're obviously going to have in a road area just in front of our buildings. So this will actually make a nice bit more of a transition and just kind of really polish off the wall and just finish it off nicely. And that also looks pretty good actually as we're walking along. But now for the next step of our whole project, we are yet again going to have to clear out a bit more space because this landscape is still very much encroaching on our two buildings. I kind of underestimated how much space I'd end up needing, so we're going to need to go ahead now and actually clear out yet a bit more space, but this time I don't want to entirely remove it. See, I think actually what could look really good in this town is having a little elevated ledge area so that we can actually build in some things like benches and some custom trees and things to kind of making a nice area for our townsfolk to kind of make their way up to and just chill out and take in the views of the lake and the whole waterway. So yeah, I think this is looking pretty good. But with that now out of the way, I do actually want to turn my attention to the area above this now elevated area within our town. So we obviously have the crop areas that we'd previously built in, and I've also spent some time kind of like leveling out the rest of the area to kind of line up with it. So what I think could look really good is having in various different crop fields sort of directly above, so this can provide a bit more of a backdrop. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to actually roughly lay out the different sort of sections, the different fields, so for the different crop types that we're going to be planting in. But first we need to go ahead and actually harvest up a load of carrots and beetroot and also some of the tall flower variants. So I'm going to be making use of the roses and of course the lilacs, because they are actually going to look really good, I think, if we can plant a load of them in, because they're going to add in a really nice pop of color, and I think it's going to look really good actually to kind of look up at from the lower area. So yeah, what we need to do now is we need to roughly lay things out. So I'm not too fussed sort of getting this exactly right, and I am actually kind of winging it to sort of roughly figure things out. So I think if we just use a little bit of cobblestone and just kind of roughly map things out, we can obviously change this as we go along and actually start planting things in. But just to give ourselves a bit of a better idea, I think this is going to really help out quite a lot. And then, of course, then we kind of look back at it from afar, and I think this is looking roughly in line with what I would like. So now what we need to do is actually start planting in the crops. Our crop fields are now fully planted. I have to say, I'm really excited to sort of see how it looks from the lower area. And yeah, this is looking really good. I am very happy with this. This is looking exactly how I wanted, really. Because yeah, that whole area before, it did look really ugly. And you know, it really kind of ruined the aesthetic of the whole area. So just kind of filling that in with all the crop fields has made a huge difference. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. But what we now need to do, that we've got this lovely backdrop ready to the town, is we need to get moving and start focusing on the next building within the town area. But rather fortunately for us, I have at least got most of the items that we actually need to start constructing with. But there are a couple of items that I'm currently lacking quite a bit of, and that is copper and also prismarine. Now I have absolutely no prismarine at all in my storage at the moment. But for copper at least, rather luckily for us, we actually have a trial chamber right next to my base. So what we need to do now is actually drop into a bit of a stealth mission and try and drop on down into the trial chamber and gather up a load of copper, hopefully without triggering too many of the spawners, because I don't really feel like getting into a skirmish right now. I just want some copper and want to start building. But for the prismarine that we also need, I normally would have to go on a bit of a hunt for a ocean monument and battle the Elder Guardian and clear out the monument and gather it up the hard way. But thankfully, we're playing on a multiplayer server that has a shopping district. So I'm actually able to buy up as much prismarine as I need for the projects at hand. So this is perfect, which means now we are freed up, ready to actually start constructing in the next building within our town. And this next building is actually going to be probably one of the taller ones, actually. And it's going to be 3 stories high instead of 2. So I think that's going to be really nice. It's going to be a little bit narrower, but it is going to be taller. So I think it's going to look pretty good. And I've tried really hard in this one to do a bit of different texturing with all like the packed mud, and actually mixed in some of the coarse dirt with that as well. I've never really used coarse dirt within like an actual build before. So I'm really happy with this sort of and how it's come out. And it's really good sometimes just to kind of experiment and use different blocks that you wouldn't normally think of. And I'd like up close, it doesn't necessarily look amazing, but I think when you actually look at it from a slight distance, it actually looks really good. So our town is now really starting to come together, and I am really happy with the progress so far. It's really starting to fill out, and it is looking pretty good, but there are a few glaring problems, and that is, well, at least one of them is that we've now kind of stranded our new town area because, of course, we built this waterway kind of like dividing the starter area with our new town. So what we need to do now is we need to actually start building in a bridge. So I don't normally build bridges, so this is going to be a bit of an interesting challenge. But on its second fold, I also want to make this diagonal, so it's going to be even harder. But I do actually want to raise up the little bit of land that we have here so that it can properly arch over the water, and then we can potentially have some boats and things kind of like sailing underneath it, which I think could look really good. But as I was just about to start building up the bridge, I actually had some guests that popped over and wanted to see the progress that we've made so far, which was always nice. That is always one of the nice things about playing on a server, is knowing that you're never alone. You've always got people to pop by and say hello, which is it's always pleasant. But anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to actually start working on the bridge. Now, as I said before, I am going to make this one actually diagonal because I think that could look really good and have a bit more like character, and I don't know, I think it's a little bit more interesting than just a standard sort of straight bridge. But it does mean it's a little bit more of a challenge to actually get right. So I have done a little bit of sort of messing around in a creative world, just to kind of experiment a little bit and try and sort of figure something out that I like the look of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start constructing this in here, and I've roughly lined it up with the sort of the pathway on the other side. So we just need to get this in, and I think this is going to look pretty good. But I'm going to go for a very rickety sort of like older style. It is obviously aimed at sort of like pedestrians, so it's not really intended for anything more than that. But I do want to make it big enough so that we can actually have some boats and things passing underneath the bridge, because I think that is actually going to look really good. Bridge now constructed, and I think this is actually looking pretty good. So there is a few little things we need to do still around it, and one of them is we need to actually wait for all of the copper lanterns and everything to fully oxidize so that we can actually apply some honeycomb. But what we also need to do is we need to actually start doing a little bit of landscaping around the bridge, because at the moment it kind of feels like it's kind of plonked on the ground, and it just doesn't look quite right when you just got the bare sort of blank sort of dirt blocks around it. It doesn't look all that good. It doesn't really feel very intentional. So I think what would look really good is if we spend a little bit of time just sort of messing around a little bit and sort of mix things up a little bit. So I want to make this look kind of like rocky and kind of feel like, as I said, it's quite deliberate that we have a bridge here that's got a nice sturdy base that it's built upon. And just a little bit more character, so we can add like lots of like foliage and things to this area, and again really kind of add a bit more life and detail into it all. So I think that's actually going to go a long way, because I kind of have a vision of this whole waterway being kind of the same and just really kind of go all out on the landscaping. This is something that I've really started to enjoy a lot more over the past few episodes and things that we've been doing, both on the Channel 64 world and on our mountain base world that we've also got running. In both of these worlds, I've really been trying to do a lot more this sort of style of building. In the past, I used to do a lot more industrial style building, which is equally fun, but I think some of the more organic stuff that you're kind of working out on the fly without too much sort of pre-planning is actually a lot more satisfying, and I tend to find that I get quite lost in the sort of, I don't know, the flow of it. It's kind of quite therapeutic for me personally, and it's hard to actually stop once you actually get going. But yeah, with this little bit that we've added in now, I think it's actually gone quite a long way. So I was going to add in a few more leaves and like some things to be able to sort of act as the bushes and the sort of the general foliage around the area. And then I'm also just going to kind of blend things in a little bit more between the path that we've kind of got in here and the bridge. But this is looking actually pretty good. I am very happy with this. So there is just one extra little thing now that I think we should add in to sort of finish this area off. So I'd actually built this boat design actually by our starter base area, so I figured that it would actually look really good having another one just over here, but I've added in some orange sails for this one, and I think this really does help finish this area off. It really kind of adds to the whole feel of the boats sort of coming in and out between the main river and into our little... I don't know what we should call this area now that it's not really a lake. I guess it is still kind of, But anyway, I think just by having another boat coming through like that, it just makes all the difference. So now we just need to quickly go ahead and actually oxidize to the exposed state with all of our lanterns and chains, and then add in some of the honeycomb to keep them in that nice state. It's always a pain that you kind of have to craft them and then place them out and wait for them to do this. So it's a shame that we couldn't just craft them straight up from the already oxidized copper blocks. But anyway, that is looking pretty good. But what it's time for now is that we need to actually turn our attention back to the town area and the area directly behind our buildings that we've already got in place up on our raised ledge that we'd built before. So I think what we need to do now is we need to actually start building in some custom trees and some other things up here so that we can actually finish this area off, because at the moment, although yes, we have a little viewing ledge, it is looking quite blank as it currently stands. But first we need to actually go ahead and start collecting up a load of birch leaves. So what we're going to do is quickly grab some birch saplings from our storage and then start farming up a load of them so that we can actually build up some custom trees actually on that rear upper ledge, because I've been really inspired by our neighbor Peepop, who's built an absolutely incredible custom birch forest, and I don't think I'd be able to do quite as good a job as they have with theirs, but I do feel like I can give it a good go. Like, custom trees is something that's also relatively new to me. It's something that I haven't really branched off too much into before now, pun intended. But I actually think we can give it a good go. It's a fun new skill to learn because it's really hard to sort of plan out, because they're just so, well, they're organic, so by nature they are quite hard to sort of get right, because you want them to look quite natural and feel like an actual tree. So, as silly as that might sound. But anyway, we're almost ready to start constructing in the trees, but the final item that I just want to quickly grab a little bit of is the hanging pale moss. Not specifically for the sort of birch trees that I want to make, but there are a few other sort of custom trees that I want to add into our general area by our new town to sort of help fill out the area and just complete some of the landscaping a little bit later on. So if we just collect up a little bit of this ready, then we're kind of in a good place to actually kind of really kind of go for it. So the trees that I want to build up the rear, they're going to be obviously birch trees. Now, I don't want to build too many of them, and I do want these to be like intentionally planted trees. I want them to be like ones that the townsfolk have actually planted here, so they're going to be quite young trees, but nothing too big, just a few at the rear. But now that we've built those trees on that upper ledge, I actually really want to build some more. I'm currently really in the flow of things and feeling quite inspired, so I'd actually like to try building in a big custom old oak tree, because we have another big empty area just along from the town that's really bare and is really calling out for some love. So what I would like to do is I'd like to first just give the same treatment that we've given our other parts of the base with a bit of extra landscaping, so like really sort of transform the embankment area along the waterway and raise things up a little bit. And then I would like to build in the tree just above, because we already had like this pathway that was passing through that Wildspade originally added to connect up to his base. So I want to make sure to keep that open still, because we do need to build another bridge at this part as well. But I think if we first sort of transform this area and add in the tree, then it's going to add in a really nice feel and make the whole area feel like really atmospheric. So I desperately want to add in this tree now. So once we've kind of finished sort of tidying up the area a little bit, then we can go ahead and add this in. And this has been a really like fun experience, I think, for me, because trees is, as I said, something really new to me. And I did build this one first in a creative world because I still don't quite have the confidence to kind of freeform this. I think I'll get there one day, but for now, I just wanted to have that extra sort of safety card of being able to experiment freely. And I'm glad I did, because I am actually really happy with this one. But what we're going to do now is we're going to add in one final extra custom oak tree, because when I was designing these in a creative world, I actually built two separate designs. And this one's slightly different because it has some branches kind of splitting out from the main trunk. And this is going to look super good, I think, by our little starter house, just to fill a little space that I had on the little ledge area. And yeah, I think it's pretty good. Considering this is like the second like oak tree that I've ever designed, I think this has come up pretty well. I mean, it's not perfect by any means. It could definitely be better, and I'm sure there's plenty of better ones out there, but I really am happy with how it's come out. And I really, really want to kind of build more different trees like this in the future, because this is like such a fun way of building, and it's a good like a bit of experimentation really, and it's definitely filling out the area really nicely. It just goes such a long way into adding some real like feel, like real like atmospheric feel to like the area, and it just goes so far. I am so happy with all the progress that we've made, but what we need to do now is we need to actually get the second bridge in place to reconnect the pathway that I mentioned before. And this bridge is going to be very much in the sort of same style as the first one that we've made, but instead of it being diagonal, this one is going to be a straight over bridge because the path that's currently there is quite straight. So I think this makes the most sense. But it's going to look so good, I think, just having multiple bridges kind of spanning across the waterway. It's just going to look so good to kind of look up and down along this whole area. Our bridge and the extra bit of landscaping is now in place, and this is looking pretty good. I am actually feeling chuffed to bits right now. I am actually really happy with how this has all turned out, and I'm really glad that the pathways joined up once again. So it kind of fills out this area quite nicely, and there is a few extra little details that I still want to add in. But what we're going to do now is we're actually going to focus now on building in the final building into the actual main town area. But there is one item that I want to make use of that I currently have none of at the moment, and that is endstone. But I've actually never been to the end yet in this world. So what we first need to do is we need to actually make our way over to the end portal, which conveniently is actually just along by us by MicroPig's base. So what we're going to do is we're going to head over there, and we're just going to gather up a little bit of endstone just so that we can actually focus on completing the town itself. So with our goal to really kind of fill out as much of the empty spaces and try and avoid having any sort of big gaps left over in the whole town area, this building's hopefully going to go a long way in solving some of that. And this is actually going to be a different style, really. It's actually going to be semi-detached and have two buildings in one, which is why I really wanted to collect up the endstone in the first place, because I want each section to feel quite unique and independent of one another, because in real life, no two buildings are truly the same. Final building now constructed, and honestly I feel this has actually gone a long way into finishing up and filling up the last little gap, and I'm glad I went for a sort of semi-detached design with this one because it adds a nice bit of variation amongst the other buildings that we've already got in place. So yeah, but inside they are looking quite bare, and I haven't really got much inside at the moment, so we will have to go ahead at some point and properly do up the interiors. I think probably next episode I will actually give it a good go just to kind of finish things up for completeness, and maybe we'll have a little go at some like armor stands magic and stuff and make up some like little scenes or something inside. That could look pretty cool. But well, for now at least, I think I'm content just by getting in the floors and just making sure everything's fully lit up inside so that it's safe and we don't get any kind of like nasty surprises when we come in the future, because that would be terrible if we ever came in and there was just a creeper sat there waiting to blow up in our faces. But what we're going to do now is we're going to return to the outer area outside of our new buildings, and we're going to actually polish off and complete the area outside. So we're going to actually add in some proper variation to build out like the roads and stuff. So at the moment obviously it's looking a bit bare with the sort of the plain old stone. So we're going to give it the same sort of treatment that we actually gave the outer walls and mix in some andesite, some cobblestone, and of course add in some like stair blocks and stuff embedded into the floor area to kind of give it a little bit more depth. And we're going to make the slopes a little bit more gradual by adding in some slabs and stair blocks. That's going to make it much nicer to sort of make it down to the different levels. And then we're also going to add in a little bit of like a sort of like coarse dirt and a sort of packed mud sort of area just directly outside of some of our buildings, so that we can actually add in a little area where we can actually plant in some like shrubs and sort of other little plants and things. So I think that's going to look quite nice and add in a nice bit of like variation and sort of like transition a little bit more between the road area. But I think we really are now on the home stretch. So there are really only a couple of final things that I really want to focus on adding into this whole town area to kind of polish it off once and for all. And the first is actually once again up in this upper ledge area where we built in the trees before. So what we need to do now is we need to actually start adding in some custom benches so that we have somewhere for our townsfolk to actually sit down, because obviously we have our nice trees and they are looking pretty good. We do actually need somewhere for the townsfolk to sit, so that is going to go a long way, I think. I am so incredibly happy with the progress that we've made so far with this whole transformation project. It is really starting to come together so nicely and is looking really good. But I now want to really focus on just getting in the final details so that we can call the transformation complete. It feels both strange and surreal at the same time just to see how far this whole base transformation has come, but it is now finally complete. So from where we started, a messy, disjointed area, to what we have now, I honestly couldn't be happier with how it turned out. But for now, that's all we've got time for. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.